And a great big hey howdy hey to all my goofy goobers out there. Welcome back to Animanic Commentaries with Comic Auzi.
And DF Wingapo.
And tonight we are, it's, yeah, well,
I'm pretty sure they at least got that part right. I don't know.
she was kidnapped.
Okay, announce what we're saying, and then I will give you the summarized version of what really happened, okay?
Yeah. Tonight we are watching Disney's adaptation of the real human person, Pocahontas. Not her real name, nickname. Her real name being Amanute. At least that's one of them. That's the one she was given when she was born. One of them,
and then Matowaka as well.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, Pocahontas is more of a nickname meaning little mischief.
Yes, so,
which makes sense to Disney's version, but,
now...
Anyway...
For me, I'm gonna refer to her as Amanute because evidently that's what they do on the Proud Family Louder and Prouder as well, trying to correct themselves. And on the topic of correcting themselves, there's no warning on the front of this movie.
Her primary name... Her secondary name was Matowaka, meaning flower between two streams. I mean, they tended to do that in indigenous cultures, that as they grew up, they'd start to change their names based on their personality or something like that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I did not know that. But, like, there's no warning on this movie on Disney+. Plus.
There isn't?
No, there's not.
Aladdin got a warning. This didn't get a warning. And this is... potentially worse because it's based on historical events or supposed to be, but it's not.
So these are the facts as I understand them. When it comes to the Crow,
at least Agrabah, they made in a mythical place, so like based on real place, but still a different place.
So here's the fact. Here's what I seem to understand. There's like, in regards to the crows from Dumbo or the entirety of Aladdin, they're taking the piss. Maybe a few more of their jokes are a little more racist than they would intend. But for this movie, they don't have any potentially offensive or racist jokes. Except for the one joke that's on everyone is that this is absolutely in no way, shape, or form historically accurate. And... Oh, yeah.
Well,
Okay, Disney.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
There are very few points that are historically accurate, which I'll get to as we go along. First, before we both get angry, let's go over the actual facts.
Yes, go over the actual facts. After knowing this, the summary on Disney Plus says, inspired by a real-life Native American legend.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh, boy, here we go.
So, yes. Early 1600s, Jamestown did happen. Now, let's talk about it. So, when the girl we know as Pocahontas was about 15 or 16, she was kidnapped by the English colonists, and among them was John Smith, who tended to, well, is what we would call the P word. Which I'm even hesitant to say on YouTube. Yes, and she was kidnapped by the white colonists and forced to give up her first child. And her husband, Kocoum, who she was married to, was killed by those that kidnapped her, and she had no idea about it. But yeah, she was the daughter of the chief, so they thought, we don't just kidnap her and take advantage of her, but she would prevent the chief from attacking us. And they did promise that she would only be gone temporarily, which, of course, was not a promise they kept. Now, see, at least when indigenous people took captives during, like, for example, the French and Indian War, they treated them well. Well, most of the time. Some of the time. Anyway, we're talking about this one, so I'm getting off topic.
The point of this entire... summarizing.
Strapped on in English. She was forced to marry John Rolfe, Well, that part is true. She did marry John Rolfe, who was not a diplomat as portrayed in the sequel, but he owned tobacco. He was a tobacco field owner,
which Disney wouldn't acknowledge. Not likely.
Yes, she was okay. So shortly after having dinner along with John Rolfe, and she vomited and died. She had not even turned 21 at the time of her death. Okay. Jeez. So, the fact that they romanticize her with John Smith, who was not a good person in real life, and barely a good person in this movie for that matter, it's just, it's so sickening when you know what really happened to this woman. Now,
yep.
I get the idea of having a whole West Side Story kind of thing between a white guy and Native American woman, and it was meant to be like through it promote understanding between races. But why did you have to do it with real people? You could have easily just done it with made up people. You know?
Yeah, it does seem so
yes.
interesting that Disney decided to go the route of name-dropping real people and real historical events, horrifyingly misrepresent them in the most clean Disney way, and then, like, still bother to say that the film is like, we were at Disneyland earlier this year, right?
Yes.
And they were doing all this sorts of stuff in the 100-year celebration, and one of the things they were doing is, like, in World of Color, they were emphasizing one hero who was there at the center of it all, who helped save the day in their relative story. And they even did this with the fireworks show. You and Victoria pointed out that they didn't show any of John Smith in Amanute's sequences in the fireworks show at the castle.
You're right.
But
oh god, they didn't.
But they are still unabashedly, shamelessly using the animated version of their character in promotion. Like I said, they went ahead and had one of the characters dress up as her for Halloween, and they think saying her real name makes it okay. No. Stop using Pocahontas. You do not deserve even a fictionalized version of a real person. Considering what even Disney did to real people. Like, not respecting Robin Williams' contract from a couple movies ago. Like, good lord. So, like...
Yeah. I mean, they had to include her Once Upon a Studio, because they were including everybody. Well, almost, but...
I mean, I didn't exactly see Brer Fox or Brer Rabbit anywhere.
Well... Yes,
no,
almost.
Don't even get me on that they couldn't do it.
But, you know, you would have had the same complaints. They're like, oh, so you included everyone else, but not, like, our only Native American heroine? Sadly, it's the only one they got.
See, no, I can't say they shouldn't put her there, but there are plenty of other absences in the Once Upon a Studio short. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and begin this. I'm gonna get it squared up first so that we can sync properly. Well, this is one of the few movies on Disney Plus to actually retain its original logo. I'm gonna back it up a little bit.
But yes, the Jamestown settlers lot of white settlers. They did not treat the women well, the indigenous women well, especially in Jamestown when they were all men.
Yep.
That part is historically accurate. There's not a single woman in that Jamestown settlement, and that was true for at least 2 years.
And men do get lonely even with other men.
Uh-huh.
See, and
there's a theory going around. Well, actually, we'll get there when we get there. We should start soon.
Though,
it's too late.
Just to make it super quick, the reason anti-gay laws exist in other countries is not because of the people in those countries, but because of the British people who were fucking each other.
Yeah.
So
why is this window so small?
Yeah, because I'm just. I can't reconfigure it, not right now. So anyway, we're gonna begin in 3, 2, 1, go. That's a little weird on your end, but that's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah. I know, but it's just so tiny.
You can always full screen
Yeah,
it, and then
this
you'll
thing
see the same
kind of
thing I
just
see.
romanticizes the English colonizing what is now America.
Yeah. Honestly, this movie, oh boy, we're gonna.
And I live in Virginia, so I have been to Jamestown.
Um,
They don't really shy away from what happened in the historical places. I thank them for that. Like the
thing
tour guide's
is
telling
that-
you, like, yeah, so the real story of Pocahontas is this.
I'll be honest with. I'll be honest. I think acknowledging that.
Another reason this guy needs to be canceled.
Oh yeah, Mel Gibson.
I guess. At least we're just seeing his voice. Okay, but you know, Mel Gibson can do a British accent, so why did they tell him to do an American accent when he's English?
Oh, that's an excellent question, and the answer is that the British accent only came about after the Revolutionary War.
Yes, but everybody else.
I mean, it's one of those anachronisms that the British accent didn't exist. What used to be a British accent is
But
what we would call an American
accent.
It's one of those anachronisms. The American accent, as we perceive it to be normally, is what the original British accent was. Just, yeah.
Okay, so an actor I never recognized until it was finally pointed out to me. Young Thomas there is Christian Bale. Yeah, so Christian Bale is Thomas. You guys know him as Batman.
Batman.
Or if you're a Hayao Miyazaki fan, Howl.
Yep.
And you wouldn't be able to tell because he does such a good accent, well, enough to know that you can't tell it's him.
Yep.
Now, see, they made Christian Bale do a British accent. Why not Mel Gibson?
Doesn't Christian Bale have a British accent?
No.
Well,
He's Batman.
I guess something we can point out is that they do seem to be painting him as the hero on his side of things in a way, which is not.
Yeah, because this is their way of trying to make us like him.
I mean, you can look up things about.
You know what? I noticed a connection between this and Newsies now, because Christian Bale was in the movie version of Newsies, which Howard Ashman and Alan Menken had worked on, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes, and Alan Menken's behind this.
That is true.
Yeah, sure, we would have. Okay, now that is a really good.
That's a pretty good introduction.
Really good shot there. Probably the most historically accurate thing is this villain. I mean, I don't know if this is what the guy actually likes, but this is like this is pretty much the ideal English colonist.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is, they really seem to point at this idea that Radcliffe is a bit of an outlier. That he's the only evil man who only wants gold and to, kill the people who already live here. No.
I know, that makes him the only one out of these guys who's historically accurate.
See, the other thing is, like, not to get too into it, but The Princess and the Frog does the same thing. The only racist white guys are the guys who are signing off on Tiana buying that building. And, like, every other white guy, like Big Daddy LaBeouf and Lottie in the movie, they're just Good friends.
You know, I feel like Steven Schwartz and Alan Menken kind of understood what the story was supposed to be more than the actual writers. Do you know what I mean?
Like they knew that the white people were actually the ones who were
Assholes.
just unabashedly bad
look
guys.
At these lyrics. Look at these lyrics. Just,
yeah.
Like, we'll shoot ourselves an engine or maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this was the first collaboration between Alan Menken and Steven Schwartz. Steven Schwartz, who his most famous work was Wicked.
Mm-hmm. I love his lyrical style.
Yeah.
I think his lyrical style is completely different than like Howard Ashman, but I think it really works.
Definitely. Yeah, look, if nothing else, Alan Menken and Steven Schwartz were given this job and they did their best out of it, and they won the Oscars for a reason.
Yeah. The music in this movie, I mean, when we get to the song Savages, they really did pretty much understand.
And these outfits though were just, I know some indigenous women would actually go shirtless, but
Well, are you gonna do that in any movie that doesn't have a rating lower than NC-17?
Well, like they kind of, these look more something like it come out of a swimsuit magazine or something. You know what I mean? Like they're so tight fitting.
Yes.
Well,
Which is
that Disney was criticized for it because then you see them wearing a little bit more in the sequel.
Oh, Eric
Goldberg. Of course, it was also
Goldberg.
winter, but I don't know.
Eric Goldberg, I love you. And I really hope you get another chance to direct an animated anything.
You know, at the very least, at least they tried to include some actual language there.
Yeah.
And unlike Aladdin, at least they got some Native American actors.
Yep. Maybe that's another reason why they don't put a warning on Disney Plus.
I'm really fishing for the good points here, just so you know.
Yeah. Here's another good point. The artistic style of this movie is very different than any other Disney film, and would even go on in a way to influence Mulan being thoroughly different from the typical Disney style, or even Hercules being totally different than the typical Disney style. And honestly, I wish Disney would do more of that. Now it's all CGI sameness, like they just don't know what else to do with themselves.
I do admire how her hair is always just constantly in the wind. And that was a nice nod in Wreck-It Ralph 2, where her hair was always in the wind.
Yeah. Miko is very much a character like Eric Goldberg was definitely heavily involved with.
Imagine if John Candy had survived and we had a talking turkey. I feel like it would have been a lot more campy. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure if that would make the movie better or worse.
It probably wouldn't. I don't know. It wouldn't have fit with the tone of this movie, I guess. We actually had talking animals.
I'm not entirely sure, whose decision it was to decide, let's not have the animals talk.
But I guess after John Candy died, they're like, well, I don't know. Okay, I will say, her friend here, I feel bad I can never remember her name. That's the thing. She's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
I do remember someone saying, like, this is why Disney princesses can never have human friends, because they're the only voices of reason.
Blueheart says the friend's name is Nakoma.
Nakoma, thank you. I knew it began with an N, and I'm like, it's not Naomi. That doesn't make sense.
I love the absolute seamlessness of the CGI canoe. Like, even the way that they've painted it to look like the rest of the background art. It's just really well done.
I think about it. Nakoma is probably the first time a Disney princess has a female best friend. Yep. You know, who's not like her surrogate mother or something like that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, because Aurora had the fairies, but they were like her ants figures. Now, Kocoum was actually a decent guy in real life, and they were married, and he tried to rescue her, but then he was killed.
And he's not a bad guy here either. He's just underdeveloped.
Now he's essentially the Tybalt of this Romeo and Juliet story.
Yep.
They did a lot of West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet inspiration. It would have worked if you hadn't used real people.
It's like, maybe they thought that, oh, well, we're Oscar baiting, so we gotta base it on historical events. And it's like, dude, maybe you can Oscar bait by doing something new. Like, do the animated...
Look, at least... Like, Mulan at least was a legend, and they could have taken liberties.
Which they did.
They did.
And the thing is, it's fiction. Like, the idea of Mulan being a real person is, like, even, like, considered, like, no, she's as much a legend as Johnny Appleseed or Paul Bunyan. May have been based on a real person or real events, but not...
They made the Titanic movie, but they also had fictional characters in the lead. You know what I mean?
That is true.
You can still kind of have these historical events, but you don't have to do it necessarily with real people and just completely change what happened.
Yeah. Like, they could have gone more the angle of Dances with Wolves and set it in a more modern setting with completely new people, new characters. It's like, but no, they decided to do his story, which, oh boy. I gotta admit, the musical moments in this movie are really good.
Because it's Alan Menken and Steven Schwartz.
Yes.
Like I said, give them anything and they'll at least give it their all.
Oh, and that singing is not the actual actor. That's Jim Cummings.
Oh yeah.
You'll actually be able to hear it a lot more when we get to the song Savages, but it is definitely Jim Cummings.
Okay, and so, fun fact to those listening, Pocahontas' singing voice, Judy Kuhn, who, well, is not Native American, but she went to high school with my dad. So, that's pretty much, like, one of the only reasons that my parents would let me watch this movie. A beautiful voice.
Yep.
And I did like hearing her again.
Okay.
When Once Upon a Studio came out.
Give it up to Glenn Keane. She really does have just the right energy here to match the song.
Glenn Keane's really good at animating hair.
Yeah, that's true. Because
with Ariel, it was like that underwater movement, and now he's got the wind movement with Pocahontas here.
And to say nothing of his development of the look and feel of Rapunzel's hair, like when he was initially the head of the project.
Girl, you would have been better off if you stayed with Kocoum.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I love Miko's face there. The animation here is great. Like, if they were going for Oscar bait, then the animation is definitely vibing with that idea. Everything about it is very pretty.
Yeah, the 90s, like I said before, was a time where people were trying to be politically correct, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey Katzenberg, like, oh, it's West Side Story, Romeo and Juliet, with Native Americans. It's gonna be a hit.
It's like...
I'm not sure if he ever learned his lesson, to be honest.
I don't think he based any other movies off of real people with such a level of disrespect. Prince of Egypt is actually very respectful of the source material compared to this shit. And they didn't feature any Jewish or Egyptian actors at all. None.
Well, one.
Okay. Technically, and like Jeff Goldblum
was Moses' mom.
And
Moses' mom.
Isn't Jeff Goldblum Jewish?
But Okay, but like Israeli or
Ah, fair enough.
look, there's a big difference between Jewish and someone who is actually
Actually,
from Israel,
yeah, fair enough.
or at least somewhere around there. Because Judaism is a religion, and any people can convert there.
That's true.
Also Judaism had a lot of mixing with Europe, and
Ooh.
well,
And
so did Israel. But okay,
now, I don't know if they're doing Cave of Wonders effects. I think they're doing Cave of Wonders effects and not carpet effects, because they got a 2D animated face nested in a CGI tree that's also moving around it.
at least, well, I will say some of the Native Americans actually look. I mean, it looks like they were actually going off of Native American models. I can't be sure. Don't quote me on that.
And I would say so because to some Westerners, and for me for the longest time, it looks more like she's wearing like a hood or a shroud of some sort. But that could just be like the shape of like dressing up the hair, like braided up in front. Dizzying. But either way,
No,
she's a nice design. I mean, I can say that about anything. Every design in this movie is good. Except for John Smith because he looks like a white savior. It's like, "Oh, I'm helping. And yet he's the one who almost gets his head cut off. So,
yeah, if you guys want a better representation of Native Americans from Disney, look at Gargoyles.
the TV show that is on Disney Plus.
Yeah, because our main girl is she's half African American, half Native American because the actress has the same
Background.
yeah, same background. Like she was going to be Latina, but after they cast the actress, they're like, you know what? Let's have her character match the ethnicity, and they went with it.
Just climb. Also, you can appreciate the idea of them just doing the pitch black, like, knot holes for eyes, and still making it friendly.
Yeah, I don't mind them putting a little mysticism in here, because why not?
I mean, aside the fact that, the magical Native American isn't necessarily, something you want to necessarily propagate, there are some things you could bring in from their beliefs and shit. But they're very much westernizing it in a very Americanized way.
Wiggins is underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen like the theories that Wiggins and Ratcliffe are a thing, and you know what? Aside from the way Wiggins acts, it would not be.
It would not be historically.
It would be inaccurate. It's more historically accurate than John Smith and Pocahontas. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
Because yes, indeed, the Jamestown settlers, because they were all men, a lot of them got lonely.
Yep.
Some people went to, do criminal acts. Some of them had just little. They lived together. Yeah, look at this. It's definitely not a healthy relationship, but come on, look at this.
What's also really impressive is that David Ogden Stiers is playing both of them.
I know.
And God rest his soul. He's great.
Oh, God.
And the CGI boat, too. Like the little dinghy. It's not yours. Of course, that's irony. That's on purpose. Also, like, that guy's like Billy O'Connell or something. Like, I forget the actor's name, but he was also.
He's in a lot of things.
He was
Wasn't he in Brave?
He was the father in Brave. He was fucking guy.
I know the actor by sight. I just can't
Billy,
remember his name. I
and
feel
of
so
course,
dumb.
Billy Bones from Muppet Treasure Island. Honestly, I love the guy.
Yes.
Billy Connolly. I was so close. So
Thank
yeah.
you, Bill Connolly. Yes, Bill Connolly. Yes, yeah. He's also in a series of unfortunate events and a bunch of other things.
What, you mean like the
I saw
Netflix version?
His wax. No, the original.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He
You're
played
right.
Uncle Monty.
Yeah.
It was one of the things I remember most.
Aside from Jim
God.
Carrey.
I hate this. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a blonde guy. I never seen one of these.
I mean, that's definitely
Really?
accurate. If a blonde guy came over into this world, it'd be like, what the fuck is that?
Well, it honestly did. Like, I read a book that was based on a real life white girl who was taken captive by the Senecas, and they were captivated by her yellow hair. So they called her Corn Tassel.
Ha! Great name. That's a great name.
And see, that book didn't pull any punches.
Maybe I should check it out.
It is one of my favorite kids' books. Yes, kids' books.
Huh.
But you know, like middle grade books, so
Right.
they're allowed to go a little darker.
Has he? I guess raccoons are native to North America.
No, they would not have seen he would never have seen a raccoon before.
Huh.
I don't even think they exist in Europe to this day.
Nope.
Unless no. I never saw one when I was in Europe. Evil gay couples. No. LeFou and Gaston were an evil gay couple. Wiggins is not evil. He's just being mistreated by the other guy who is evil.
Yeah. Again, really leaning on that whole like, oh, racism is only just a few bad apples. Like, no, I don't think you really know how prevalent racist people are.
Okay.
Or even people who are just
Calm down, man. I'm Ace. I can be a little prudish sometimes, or what people think is prudish. At least they did do some research, like into the language or whatever. My mom always says they really should have just slaughtered the colonists. Would have saved everybody.
Probably.
Oh, they really do. Yep. Oh, yes, especially with the women and children. I do like that little subtle foreshadowing. From a cinematic standpoint. Yeah.
Oh
Actually,
boy.
going off of Wiggins and Ratcliffe, it really wasn't uncommon for some guys in power to seek out favors from like their page boys or so. I know there was a case with, well, this is like after, like a century later, but it was a revolutionary. He adopted his boyfriend because that was the only way they could be legally accepted as family.
Hmm. Min, I want to point out.
They tried to find whatever way they could.
Min, I want to point out that the whole one rotten apple idea of racism is not an appropriate angle to take, especially when there are some people who take advantage of the system because it benefits them, and sometimes those people become horrible. So it's like,
Okay, Scribe, thank you for pointing out pointing this out to me. Real life Ratcliffe was far more a positive figure, as he never tried to exterminate the natives, but actually tried to negotiate with them, and war erupted because of the hostility of Chief Powhatan. Okay, so maybe Ratcliffe and John Smith should reverse their personalities.
Pretty much. We can't have a romance with Mr. Radcliffe. Yeah.
Yeah,
way
but they were a
further,
little further south
way
there.
further south.
Mexico. Now that is probably more historically accurate than anything. That map, just so crudely drawn.
Yeah.
Blueheart saying this song is problematic. Well, it's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
It's a villain song. It's these guys claiming everything is theirs. Also, it's execution.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Wiggins is pretty much like, he's like Josh Gad's version of LeFou, if you know what I mean. Not evil, but just adoring this evil guy.
Coming up with this next lyric here. Honestly. This oddly looks like Cinderella's castle.
Man, I could see how Steve Schwartz would kind of use this when he wrote the wizard in Wicked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Of course, not to spoil the
You
plot
should have
of...
gone further south. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Also...
King James the First, in case anyone's interested.
If you're keeping track of the historical...
Mary, Queen of Scots. And like, I don't know, a cousin of some sort to Queen Elizabeth the First. She's more of a stalker than Ariel. God. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Ariel at least planned to say hello to him, even before the trading her voice thing. Yes, James the First is in the sequel. That's why they call it Jamestown. And it's called Virginia after the Virgin Queen. Yeah. I feel like these John Smith lines are just kind of forced in here.
I mean...
They're like, oh, no. We need John Smith in here. Like, okay, fine. Let's give him a couple lines.
No, I think it's all to point out the structure of how, in this characterization, in fact, he's not the real life John Smith. We are going to assume that he is a completely different person, but also still horrible, so we're going to call him Mel Gibson. So anyway, Mel Gibson here just wants the adventure, but Radcliffe wants the gold. Like, he's
of course,
actually...
he's not any better.
Yes, Mel Gibson isn't much better here because he still thinks like, oh, this land is wild and untamed, except for the fact that there are people who live here, jackass. Just because the civilization doesn't look like your civilization doesn't mean it's uncivilized. And that's just so... It's gentrification.
I do like that, like, animation there that, like, he's cautious. So, like, he knows somebody's watching.
Huh? If she knew what that
like,
stick
I give testament to all the character animations here, but
I want to point out that...
See what I mean? I'm really fishing for something nice to say, and it hurts.
Like... And like, if she knew what that stick did, I don't think she'd be getting this close. Get down, Miku.
Yeah, you know, Mel Gibson playing this role makes total sense, considering what he turned out to be.
Ah, shit.
Man. Okay. Oh, Pocahontas, you're lucky you're pretty. You'd probably be dead by now. I've seen that in cinema since. Like, yeah, the only reason he didn't shoot her is like, oh, she's pretty. I can't shoot her. Ugh.
Thank you, Disney. You made CinemaSins right about something.
I mean, it is a good shot. These are pretty good shots, but
We're trying to Oscar bait this.
Sad.
They're trying to Oscar bait this Romeo and Juliet shit.
Okay, Pocahontas didn't even save John Smith. It was like part of the ritual of welcoming him into the tribe. Like they pretended to execute him, and then she saved him.
Like, will anyone stand up to defend this man?
No, this guy, what he did would break into the villages and hold people at gunpoint to get their supplies. He wasn't a good guy.
No.
Scribe is like, I wonder what if Pocahontas and Tarzan interacted. Yeah.
I mean, that's still a white guy and a Native American interacting, so. Well, we gotta jump.
This is something.
Well, we gotta jumpstart the plot. So, magical solution.
Which is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's stupid. But at least they tried to come up with some explanation versus like in, the Road to El Dorado where they offered no explanation. Atlantis had a better explanation. of why there would be no language barrier.
Mm.
Like, oh, because they touch hands and there's wind, then they will understand. It's like, I'm sorry. Oh, I call BS. I call BS.
Also, exactly how powerful is Grand Mother Willow?
I take your hand. Yes, you're right.
And I'm sorry.
And I am magically fluent in English.
I'm sorry, but if you lead with a name like Pocahontas, he could still assume that you're speaking in tongues. Like, what language is that?
I mean, come on. Like, at least with Jane and Tarzan, like you, just Tarzan into himself, and then he's mimicking her. I mean, different situation, but still. This guy's just living his best life. He gives it to Doug. Wicked's probably the only decent white guy in this movie.
Yep.
Well, yeah, see, like, if the point they were trying to do is, like, show misunderstanding and all that, especially from the white guy's side. And they're just defending themselves. And this is why conservative white guys should never have guns. There, I said it.
Yep.
You see, Kokuam, he's defending his men. he's defending his men, but they still kind of paint him as an unlikable character. I mean, this movie does. Uh, now, Thomas's
bad.
arc is interesting. I feel like if maybe the movie was more about Thomas than John Smith.
You know, if they're making shit up, why wasn't the romance with the underdog, little scrawny wimp kid Thomas?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just as historically.
He's more like Romeo than Mel Gibson is.
It's just more.
Because that's essentially what Romeo was. He was just a little teenage boy in love.
Like, let's be honest, and it would put him closer in age to the real Pocahontas, in a way. And it's like, you know, at the very least, if nothing else, yes, these white men are dangerous. A summary of world history.
Yeah, I've seen people like make fanfics of like Thomas and Nakome, is that her name? My roommate told me about this fanfic about Thomas and Kocoum, which was interesting.
That's an interesting angle.
A lot more interesting than what actually happened here in this movie.
No, Thomas is not in the
Like
sequel.
Ferngully. I'm Zach. I'm Krista.
It's just hand forward.
You know, handshake is kind of a weird concept if you think about it.
Let me try ripping your arm out of your socket. Hello.
Because, well, it after 2020, it's become a bit less of a thing.
Yes, good job, Flit.
But our Sebastian here, who is reasonable.
Yes, Flit, keep that man away from her.
Yes, red flags everywhere.
Sometimes foreshadowing is fairly obvious.
That is funny, actually. Thank you, Miko. Make him mad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mel Gibson.
And here we go! Red flag! Number 1. Well, actually, number 2, because he did aim a gun at you.
Okay, jackass, their houses can...
Number 3!
Their houses can withstand the weather sometimes way better than your houses. Maybe, like, even, like, 100% of the time.
Hello, red flag number 4! We're really ticking it off. Yeah, that's like Mel Gibson's line now. That's not what I meant. Let me explain. Wow, this is really Mel Gibson now.
Oof.
Red flag number, where are we, 5?
What exactly do you mean? Yes, explain yourself, Mel.
And now we get to the Oscar-winning song.
Yep.
Which by itself is beautiful, but... That's what I mean. I think the songwriters got the point they were trying to make better than the movie did. You know what I mean?
And yeah, reason that this song definitely resonates, like, even today.
Yeah, this song does resonate. Too bad it did nothing to help these people.
Nope.
Just saying.
These lyrics are very...
Yeah, Stephen Schwartz.
I mean, the thing...
Yeah, these songwriters will return in the next movie. So.
I mean, Stephen Schwartz on lyrics, and really point out, like, how this could definitely be taken to Alphaba, like, about, like, really getting an angle of something you don't understand, but still understanding it. And this is really what they mean when they... This is really what they mean when they say, write what you know. And if you know what it feels like to be outcast and not understand why, you put that into the lyrics.
You know,
even if it is someone
Stephen
else's
Schwartz's
experience.
Thing, you know, Howard Ashman's thing was lists. Stephen Schwartz's thing is metaphors.
Yes.
Yeah, if I think of like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that.
He does life in his metaphors.
And we'll probably touch on that more in the next movie.
Yes. I'm having hard things to say about this movie because it's pretty animation, but it's also like, I feel like, unfortunately, like, that's kind of the unfortunate effects that it's not the only credit I can give this movie. It's like, oh, every Disney movie's pretty, but this one is pretty, especially pretty, and I could say that, but like, but beyond that, it's like, and the music's great, but like, the story is morally reprehensible. They based it on real people in ways that just were not appropriate at all. I do appreciate this metaphor. It's like, whether we are white or copper skin, we need to paint with all the colors of the wind. Like, in other words, the idea being that you don't wash away culture, but you come together. Kind of ironic for where it ended up, historically speaking.
So that's what paint with all the colors of the wind means. Like, thank you. You answered the question I've had for ages.
I mean, I'd say that's the angle they were going with. The angle is like, you don't snuff out the people you think you don't snuff out the things you don't understand. You understand them and incorporate them. You don't snuff them out. You work with them. Anastasia, you could at least make the
flag number 6.
Anastasia, you could at least make the excuse that her fate was unknown at the time. I mean, also, for all intents and purposes, like, they aren't even basing it on a real person, because at that point they're going as far as fictionalizing events completely.
I mean,
like,
Don
Rasputin
Bluth
was not
that
so
he
evil.
He intended for that to be like a fairy tale, and
Yeah.
that was the only way they were able to not get the Russians mad.
I mean, they turned Rasputin into a fucking evil wizard. He was neither evil nor wizard. Okay, he might have been a little evil, but like... And he was very hard to kill, but like, aside from that, yeah.
Okay, we're not talking about Anastasia.
Right.
Anastasia is not, well, it may be owned by Disney now, but it's not Disney because it wasn't made by it.
Yeah. Because it's a...
Yeah, now you're feeling bad
Now
about
you're
it.
second guessing yourself.
Which would work if it's like one of those white guys finally realizing, oh my god, the world I live in is just awful. And my friends, like, we've been joking about this forever and it's wrong.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that would be nice, because there are people who will realize what shitheads they've been.
Miko.
Like, whether they've been racist or homophobic. And they're like, oh my god. I mean, I'm pretty sure even the most decent of white people had those moments when they're like, oh god, this was not right.
Yeah, it's like...
I had that moment when I realized, oh god, maybe I shouldn't have dressed up as Lilo for Halloween.
Oh, this is great.
This is... Do you notice how Radcliffe was actually legitimately concerned for a second? It's like... Oh, and listen.
Someone understood the assignment in this movie. Actually, how much you wanna... Okay.
Decent white guy here.
Was that an ad-lib from David Ogden Starr's, like, really understanding? Is like... Because was that... Was that in the script, or did he ad-lib that?
I'm sorry. Some of these. That is actually funny.
That?
But
Okay,
not,
okay.
But the delivery is funny.
The delivery, that's what guns are for. It's like, that's
Okay,
just
here's
so
another
silly.
inaccuracy. You see them more around the Canadian area.
So, North American, but further north. Pretty much.
Yeah, we still don't. I can verify. The moose prefer colder temperatures. I do like the note that she has like one piece of corn in there. Her friend has
And then she's hiding it because, like, well, I mean, I'm technically doing work.
Yes, Blue Heart. Wiggins is the best line in the movie because he's
Yeah.
the only guy who understands what's going on here.
Yeah. Please do.
A boy like that who'd kill your brother. She's essentially that character.
Yeah.
The nurse character, for talking Romeo and Juliet terms.
Best friend just not entirely sure what's going on.
Yeah, I'm like. Also, I want to know: are they actually speaking English in front of her? So would she even be more confused?
That's an understatement.
They're trying to make him seem controlling and all that, but you know what? He's right in this case.
He is. And he unfortunately dies for it. Like. Oh, I'm sorry.
He dies both in history and in this movie.
Yeah, so not really spoiler alert so much as hope you've been paying attention.
Yes, now you're suddenly pro Native Americans. Well, it is true. They wouldn't have seen corn before. Corn, squash, and the three main crops: corn, squash, and beans.
This would make a lot more sense.
Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to explore, but there's a big difference between, exploring and appreciating the cultures you visit.
Yeah.
And taking it over.
Again, this is like, seriously, Thomas would have been a much better character for this. Okay, seriously, the way Mel Gibson's being drawn there actually is a much better, like, lighting and angle thing than the way they lit the beast in that one shot when he transformed.
So you're right. Cocoam didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Like, there's strangers that attacked them first.
It's like, here's the thing.
No one should be out on their own.
Here's the deal. They were armed with the only things they could be armed with, and they were trying... Yeah, I feel like those owls right there. It's like they knew that joke was bad, and they just cut to a couple of hours owls reacting to it like that, assuming that would be funnier.
I do like Grandmother Willow's sass.
Okay, neither of those things are actually true about John Smith.
Man, she's already leaning her head on the shoulder. Leaning. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
This is funny.
This forest is haunted.
We're getting more fun moments from the actual fictional characters. Who are not based on real people.
See, I was gonna say, if you're lucky, you'll never see him again.
You guys have like had 2 5-minute interactions.
Yeah.
Of course, Romeo and Juliet was the same thing, but
The thing is that the whole Romeo and Juliet thing was a tragic comedy. It was like, you know they're gonna die, and the fact that they both kill themselves is the punchline to the whole tragedy that their parents could have totally prevented. It's like, it's a fucked up punchline.
I prefer Disney's second attempt at Romeo and Juliet, Lion King 2.
Yep. Honestly. Ooh, forging a bond between the tribes.
Diplomacy.
Yeah.
Within, I don't know.
See, imagine that. Diplomacy. And considering what we think of.
Yeah. No, you should just destroy them. Because, you know, and this is historically proven. White people never negotiate. They just, blah.
You know, in the regards to the story of Amanute specifically, yeah, there had already been tensions.
Yeah.
There had already been tensions.
And in that case,
by that point.
in that case, like, oh yes, we will totally return your daughter if you promise not to attack us.
Now,
why?
I went ahead and like I found this like animated like miniseries about like Adam Ruin's history with Adam Conover basically doing what he did for like Common Things where he did it about history, mentioning how initially the natives were pretty welcoming, but then the white guys are like shoot to kill, shoot to kill. So it's like after a few times where you're like, hi, welcome to our land, and then it's like shoot to kill, shoot to kill. It's like at that point it's just like, okay, that's it. We've trusted these guys enough times,
Yeah,
fool me once.
You know, this is like a week after Indigenous People / Columbus Day, and
Yeah.
a few weeks before Thanksgiving. This is pretty good timing.
Yeah, brilliant timing, really. John, you've been missing out on a lot over here.
Yeah, and this one's hot.
Uh-huh.
I think I took that from Cinema Sins as well.
Uh-huh.
Now see, Wiggins. Only decent white guy in this movie.
Yep.
No, David Ogden Stryers. They told him, hey, play the shittiest white guy you possibly can.
I mean, he already spent.
Okay.
I mean, he already spent years doing it on like MASH, so. Dave Ogden Stiers is a great character actor in general. Like.
Yes.
We'll get to one of my favorite roles of his eventually. We're not there yet.
Yeah, see, Nakoma's a real friend here.
She really is.
Because, a real friend knows when to break a promise to a friend when she's in trouble.
Now, stop me for a minute, but if Pocahontas means mischievous one or playful spirit, then wouldn't her name also likely easily translate to Loki in some regard? Now, obviously not one-to-one, but in the ballpark.
Wow. Wow, I have no idea what to say to that.
Imagine if
I didn't know if that was a bad joke or a brilliant one.
imagine the Loki TV series goes on, they meet Pocahontas, and it's like, this isn't one of the variants, is it? No, I don't think so.
Okay, now this... Yeah, see, Thomas's character arc is much more interesting.
I mean,
This is, like, this, toxic masculinity really taking effect here. See? Yep. Yeah, because remember, he was the guy who fell off the boat and had to be rescued.
okay,
And
I want to paint a picture here,
fire.
and I don't think this was intentional, or I don't know if this is intentional or not. And I would love to, like, talk to Glenn Keane and Eric Goldberg about, like, how this happened. It's like, did Thomas become the beast in this movie? Where it's like, the character of Pocahontas is like Belle. She doesn't really have to change perspective. She already has a beat on what is right and wrong. And then Thomas, who's completely unrelated from her story, is the one who has to learn a lesson in a way. Because Thomas is kind of a standout here. Like, he's much, much better than Mel Gibson, like, in terms of... Again, if you're gonna base it on real events but fictionalize the depictions of the characters, then...
Writer, if you write a fanfic about that is better than the movie, I will read it.
Please. Have John Smith be John Smith, but have Thomas be the Romeo to the Juliet. Honestly, it's just much...
I mean, I get what they were trying to do with Miko and Percy here. I do love this part.
And
the dog's like,
poor
oh
dog.
my god, the tree just came to life. Now see, I'm having more fun with the non-historical characters.
Yeah, let's paint a picture. Right there. What are we looking at? Clever.
I mean, that is a good point.
Now that's a poignant line. The right path is never the easiest one, if I'm being perfectly honest.
But it didn't work in this case.
It didn't work here in the fictional world. It didn't work in the real world because in the real world it was a horrible tragedy, and the people who knew about this half of the history actually knew how horrible a tragedy it was. And for the people who didn't know how horrible a tragedy it was, this is historical revisionism, and it needs a warning on Disney Plus because of that, at least.
Okay. Versus most of the kisses we got, this is a full-on makeout.
Yeah, there are tongues involved.
The focus on his eyes there.
And of course, John came unarmed because he trusted him. Of course, he can still take care of himself,
they're
obviously.
trying to make him look like they're trying to make him look like he's doing this out of pure spite, but no. John Smith is a red flag. And he's seen what these white people can do. And this
is most unfortunately the one time he doesn't fuck up.
Yeah, with the toxic masculinity and also the fact that John saved his life going into that. The necklace breaking off. It's like you've turned your back on your people. Like you. Yeah, and Thomas is like, but I thought I saved you. What?
He truly does not understand. It would have been so much better.
He's a boy. He's like, what, 17, 18?
Here.
Yeah, Thomas represents
here's an interesting version of this movie.
Peer pressure thing.
Here's an interesting version of this movie, right? Let's go ahead and open. We're playing up John Smith the exact same way. Oh, he's such a hero, and then he saves Thomas's life. But then as soon as we get to the New World, we completely pivot to Thomas as our white lead. And
Oh,
so it's
wait, I forgot to ask.
and let's
does
have it
this
be
have the? I forgot to ask. Does this have the "If I Never Knew You" sequence in here? We never checked to see if people are watching the special edition.
I think most people are probably watching through Disney Plus. And we'll just find out what happens, I guess. Just see how it goes.
Yeah. Now that is a seamless it was a seamless edit because it was already animated, but then was deleted. But and then they just finished the animation.
Yeah. It would have been so much better if John Smith had actually shot Kocoum, right? Like, so John Smith comes to rescue Thomas, and then he shoots Kocoum, and then they capture John Smith.
Yeah, but yes. Then they make it look like a big misunderstanding. Because, Romeo in Romeo and Juliet did actually kill Tybalt.
Yeah.
And us, if we're going West Side Story, Tony did kill, what was his name? Bernardo.
I don't think enough people always lean on the angle
only
of...
after his friend was killed by... Yeah. Anyway, lean on the angle of...
So many people lean on the angle of, like, this whole, like, sexualizing and even fetishizing non-white women. And definitely doing that in the case of Pocahontas. Deservedly so. Like, yeah, no, this depiction here is not great. How many people don't comment on the fact that her friend's midriff is exposed all Jasmine style? Like...
Yes... The 90s.
Like you said, they really look like
and
swimsuit.
And the early 2000s,
not
just by Disney.
Like you said.
Not just by Disney.
Yeah, like you said, they look more like swimsuit models.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, like, showing, like, short skirts or anything like that. Women can wear what they want, but it's, like, all of them here.
Even worse is, like, they could have had it where, like, that belt, right? You see how that belt, like, keeps it tied up, right? And then above that belt, just, like, draw that sack that doesn't show her form. And just show that the clothes are, they're not fashion, they're form. They're function. They're function over form.
Yeah, see, because without the "If I Never You," this edit is pretty awkward. Suddenly she's on the other side. Because they did do the animation where she, like, moved around a little bit during the song.
I think Disney's probably making more of a case, particularly on Disney Plus, to just have the original versions of the movie, and by original they mean theatrical release.
Exposed vendors were sort of a common thing in animation back then. Yeah, look at Kim. Oh, God.
The thing is...
What's going through Wiggins' brain right now? He was pulled into the tent and a hand was going over his mouth. I was like, what's going through his brain?
It's like, really? Right now, sir? Good night, everybody.
Okay, now this sequence is heavily criticized because of how the Native Americans are depicted in here.
They really do end up both sidesing this moment here.
I mean, I give points to the songwriting here.
It's very much in the same vein as the mob song. Yeah, thank you. It also has a great...
God, why is it terribly catchy? Ugh.
Because I think it's catchy so that it sticks in your head, because it is an important message, and then they both sides it.
And they're actually right in this case, because even if they're wrong about John Smith, a white man still killed Kocoum. They just got the wrong guy. They're right though. But they're right.
They are.
These guys are right, though.
Which is part of the problem with the way this song is framed. This song is framing it like they're both in the wrong, which is not correct.
Yes, because they didn't. Because the white man attacked first.
Yes.
And when you go from the Native American perspective, they killed Kocoum. They killed their best warrior, and yeah,
All right.
like even if it wasn't John Smith, it was still one of them.
So, I want to point something out here in this moment of storytelling. It's like, Grandmother Willow's like, your dream, you can still fix this child. Whereas,
Oh my god.
Lindsay Ellis, God rest her YouTube channel, she basically, did the proper comparison that this whole story of a woman of color, you know, going on an adventure and trying to save everyone, including her tribe, led to her grandmother's spirit telling her that, I'm sorry I put so much pressure on you. That movie is Moana. And once again, a problem that does not exist in this movie. Moana's fictional, completely fictional. Moana is not a real person. She's not based on anyone real. So whatever happened.
So wow, that's good.
I'm mostly joking,
Well,
Fizzy.
actually, was based.
Fizzy.
Moana was actually based on a legend.
And there you go.
I mean,
again,
Moana
not a real
herself,
person.
Anyway, Squad just destroyed me. They're sandwiches, barely even human.
Anyway, so yeah,
I mean,
and so as I was saying, yeah, Lindsay Ellis' channel is still there. She's just no longer making content because of some drama that went down, but it's still there if you want to see it. She's still making content, but it's on a streaming you gotta pay for.
I mean, from a cinematic standpoint, this whole sequence is
God, that is really pretty.
Just the three parties running.
Yep. Came very close to slamming that rock down.
Like I said, this was not a romantic moment in history. They did it as a welcoming into the tribe, which they shouldn't have done.
Even Pocahontas is leaning.
It ain't gonna matter to the white guys.
Even Pocahontas is leaning on this angle. Yeah, I'm not calling her Amanute at this point. She's just as far away from this whole thing as the historical accuracy of the pug dog. Just,
yeah.
Honestly, I really want to point out here, she's leaning in on the song's angle of both sides are wrong. Like, no, they invaded your land and they must be, just get rid of them. Yeah. And they're making this the big, okay. In terms of historical inaccuracy, and also religious inaccuracy, the one inaccuracy in the other Katzenberg historical drama, Prince of Egypt, was that Moses was so against the idea of speaking for God, like terrified of the idea, and didn't think he like was good at it or deserved it, and God was like, all right, you know what, fuck it, your brother here, I'm gonna lead you to your brother and your brother will speak for you. Which was the Mel Gibson character that Dr. Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum played in the movie. But yeah, so they decided to just drop that and make Moses seem a little more heroic. But aside from that, they lean on fictionalizing the idea of like, okay, what if we focus on the story of these brothers? And it's like, yeah, no, that was good. But this is historical revisionism on a level that is so, honestly, disrespectful. It deserves a warning on Disney Plus for that alone. Like, the idea that this movie is respectful enough of either culture to be Yep.
Yeah, and then suddenly these white guys are totally fine with the Native Americans. Not! Did not happen!
And suddenly,
Look,
the white
look,
people suddenly,
I am not going. Yeah.
and suddenly,
I am not going to deny it.
yeah, suddenly, so suddenly, the white.
Yes, I am not going to deny it. Look, my ancestors came on the Mayflower. I am not going to deny that my ancestors did crap.
Yep. And suddenly, the white people weren't racist anymore.
Now see, Wiggins, he's legitimately sad.
Jamestown, the racist. Well, not anymore.
Wiggins,
Township.
you're the only innocent party in all this. I'm sorry. Yes, and yes, they suddenly made peace. They did not make peace.
No, the Mayflower wasn't
Wait,
Jamestown. The Mayflower dropped on Plymouth.
Yes,
What
this
it-
would have been about, yeah, Mayflower was like 10 or, well, they said 1606, and then they arrived like around 1607 maybe, and then,
Yeah.
so about 13 years later.
Yeah.
Remember, those sea trips take a while.
Yep.
They don't have those fast cruise liners.
1620
in this
squad
time.
says.
Yeah, I know it's 1620. I was trying to remember when this movie took place.
Oh. Plymouth?
Yeah,
Plymouth,
the
Plymouth,
Mayflower people were trying to go to Virginia, but then they missed the mark a few miles north.
Yeah.
That's how Massachusetts got started.
Yep.
Now, the point I'm trying to make is that my ancestors came on the Mayflower, which is another story, but which also ends in Native Americans dying in various ways.
Yep.
Oh, right, Fizzy, I forget you're Canadian. Of course you wouldn't know the story. Okay. Right. Yeah, Plymouth was in what is in Massachusetts. The famous rock is still there.
Yep.
You could go see. The 1620 rock.
Yep.
The Mayflower hit.
Isn't that also a little bit of historical revisionism because that wasn't the rock that they hit and that rock was somewhere else?
Maybe.
Like where?
Well, it's a historical marker nonetheless.
Yeah.
It's like, it's your path to choose. This girl never got a choice in real life.
Yeah.
Why did they think it was okay to open this can of worms? Yeah, honestly, I like this better with the newer animation. Which, like I said, was sort of new because they'd already penciled the animation and then they just finished it up for the special edition.
Yeah.
'Cause the cuts just feel awkward now to me.
Yeah. All right. Mel Gibson
Yes,
died
there
on
were
the way
still
back.
colonists in Virginia when the Mayflower arrived. Now the Pilgrims were a whole other thing.
Yeah.
They were the Puritans who wanted religious freedom. And they're like, well, there's a colony in Virginia, so why don't we go there where we'll be under less scrutiny from the king?
We have to go now.
But they missed it. Yeah, they missed the mark by a few states, if you want to think on your geographic map.
Yep. We have to go now. Our country needs us. Mel Gibson died on the way back to his home country.
Yeah, they should have kept John Smith dead in the sequel.
I think I've only ever seen the sequel once, and I never watched it again. I didn't know Mel Gibson was still in that one.
I think Well, he's barely in it.
Hmm.
I think I only watched it a couple. Well, I think I watched that one more than the first one.
And
Well, I do give them props for trying to change the code that she doesn't get the guy in the end.
now, help me out here, but like, did this
Go
film
ahead.
do all that well, like critically, or
Well, it won the Oscar for Best Original Score because Alan Menken's amazing, and
Duh.
Best Song for Colors of the Wind.
right? But I'm talking about,
Because Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz are amazing.
but I'm not referring to accolades. The accolades would at least imply that it did critically well. I'm talking about fiscally.
Let me check. I'm gonna check right now. Pocahontas
Because this is...
box office.
It did well, but made less than
Okay.
Toy Story. And reviews were
earned over
mixed.
346 million at the box office.
And look at that, Glenn Keane
Oh,
was
that's right.
on
It did come out.
story.
It did come out the same. Now, Elemental is a better representation of
Yes.
interracial romance.
Much better. Well, I mean, being based off of real events, but also just using fictional characters to portray that.
Yes. Or if you want another interracial romance, okay. Well, Princess and the Frog may be a bit mixed in its reviews. At least the romance is awesome.
And again, fictional characters, so we don't have to fully
Yes.
deal with the horrible implications of post-Civil War America. Anyway, but yeah, no.
We'll get there.
This film is pretty. It's well animated. The songs are good, with the exception maybe of Savage's.
This song included.
Like-
This song included is really good.
Yeah, with Savage's being so both sidesy, it's just so. Oof.
Hmm.
Mel Gibson's animation
Yeah,
was done
it's
by
like
John Bluth's former colleague,
songwriters-
John Pomeroy.
Songwriters were like, I feel like the only reason this movie did well was because of great animators and great songwriters.
Yeah. Yes, in history, John Smith did die on the way back to the country.
Yeah. Yeah, die, John Smith.
Yeah.
Die.
Yeah, just
Die a horrible death.
fuck right off, Johnny Smithles.
Yeah, I'd recommend the book Indian Captive. Now, mind you, it is mostly, yes, from a white girl's perspective, but, take into account that she's the one who was kidnapped and this would have been what she felt like.
Yeah.
But it doesn't shy away that, yes, some
Based
Native
on an idea
Americans,
by
they
Mike
did participate in
Gabriel.
war, but also it's appreciation of the cultures. It was going in with all the white people who were held captive by the Indians, but they were accepted as part of the tribe and treated well. And then they were given the choice to go back to their people or to stay with them.
All right.
And the book Indian Captive is about one of those girls that did make the choice to stay.
No.
That is a better historical fiction story than this.
Now.
Yes, she doesn't end up with him in the sequel because Pocahontas in real life did marry John Rolfe, not of her own free will, though.
Yeah.
Makes the sequel a bit historically accurate. A bit! Not by much.
Yeah, and evidently, even worse than the historical revisionism and all that shit, is that part of the influence, like, for the Disney movie, according to Adam Ruin's American History, apparently, that part of the influence came from writings in a book written by John Smith.
Yeah, I saw some. I
Yeah.
saw some names there. I think they were like creative consultants. Those were definitely Native American names.
Yeah. But
So
you can only get so many people's
they
input before
they
still realizing.
tried, probably tried a little than they did with Aladdin, but not enough.
Yeah. Few issues with this film: historical inaccuracies, cultural appropriation, romanticized colonialism, simplistic characterization, the missed opportunity of empowerment. You can't change.
Yes.
Yeah, the ultimate, at the end of the day, you can't change history, but the very least you could probably do is at the very least respect your audience enough to be able to depict the story as the fucked up shit it was. Sure, Cocoam died,
Yeah.
but like that's not fucked up enough. Because Mufasa died as
I'd
well.
like to see them. If they want to go with a real life Princess of Color, what about the last queen of Hawaii? I believe her name was Kahiulana. Now, sadly, she did not stop Hawaii being taken over by America.
Yeah.
But she was a strong, independent woman, and she wore glasses.
Honestly, I think
Yeah.
Disney should like stay as far away from retelling any historical figure story in animation ever again, because I think this is like the only time they did it, and it's still not great.
Yeah, because Mulan, while Mulan was rumored to be a real person, it is essentially an epic poem.
Yes, it's like whether or not it was real, it's all a matter of it's adapting a fictional story while understanding that what we're adapting isn't real. But we also still want to try to get as many things accurate about the culture of China as possible. Because, you know, we want to try. They still fucked up a few things. But as the YouTube channel by Ziren Zhao, they started the channel to talk about all the horrible inaccuracies in the live-action remake of Mulan, but when they finally tackled the animated Mulan, it was about the things they got wrong and right. Because the thing is, a movie that came out in the late 90s from Disney Animation did much better job at depicting the Chinese culture than the movie that filmed just across the street from a Chinese concentration camp. Who knew?
Oh boy.
Anyway,
boy.
but
I haven't even seen the live action Mulan.
And just for saying
I'm
that,
afraid to after what I've heard.
And just for saying that, I think I've been permanently blacklisted from the Chinese internet. So that'll be it from me and my goofiness.
Yeah, you and like maybe like 90% of the internet, so you're not alone there.
Yeah. All right. But anyway, food for thought. The animation is great. And the songs are great with one exception. The score is beautiful. And that's it. Everything else is reprehensible from a historical standpoint, from a respecting, you know, like this country's history was in bloodshed and you know, colonialism in general. And honestly, it's like at that point, if you're gonna be living here and making a movie about that, why partake in historical revisionism? If you ain't gonna go the full country mile, then don't make it at all. Hell, if I may be so bold, John Smith being a predator, right? Let's
predator of multiple ages.
And let's what if we did, like, if Disney were to go the angle, they could have simply had the horrible idea of him almost getting her, which would be historically inaccurate, you know, but it would still be at least somewhat honest that these white men are dangerous and also blatantly evil, like a lot of them, and the ones who are not fully evil have to unlearn all the evil things they learned. That's the thing.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter. Stop Asian hate.
To see a lot.
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
Just
I would have loved to see a lot more of Thomas's unlearning.
Yes, make him Frollo. Essentially, we're gonna cover that in a couple weeks. That movie is so much better.
Oh, yeah.
And again, these are fictional characters. This was a completely fictional story, and yet they did such a better job at being able to adapt the concepts of the fucking church. Well, we'll get that. We'll get there when we get there. Thank you all so much for...
We'll get there.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us on this sordid adventure. And if you're viewing this after the fact, I am so sorry you had to watch Pocahontas. And until next time, remember to take care.
Wait!
Stay safe.
I got one more thing to say.
Okay.
So, this is not a better love story than Twilight. I'm no longer going to say better love story than Twilight. I'm going to say better love story than Pocahontas. And drop the mic. Because
at least in Twilight, the characters were all fictional idiots, not real life.
Yes.
So, thank you all so much for joining us. If you're viewing this after the fact, once again, very, very sorry that you had to watch this film. And until next time, remember to take care, stay safe, and be kind in all that you do. Good night, everybody.